As we are all told growing up, the lunar eclipse is caused by this, as you can see in this rendition, the Earth casting its supposed shadow on the moon, whilst all three are lined up perfectly like a row of billiard balls. However, I do not believe this is what truly happens, and I will prove it with history and even a bit of footage of an eclipse. First, it should be noted that the moon, as you believe, isn't a solid and has been recorded to have instances where it acts transparent. On top of that, it is believed that there are other transparent or invisible celestial bodies, or even stars, that are near our viewable stars, and this in turn is what can cause a lunar eclipse. Bear with me while I explain. Here's some recorded instances first proving the sun's transparency. In the monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society, Volume 20, we see the following quote on page 297. Quote, "The date of this occurrence was 1794, March 7. It appears that 3 persons at Norwich and 1 in London saw a star that evening in the dark parts of the moon." End quote. Another quote revealing the apparent transparency of the moon is from the Times newspaper of April 17, 1848. In a letter by Sir James South of the Royal Observatory, we find the following quote. "On the 15th of March, 1848, when the moon was 7½ days old, I never saw her unillumined disk so beautifully. On my first looking into a telescope, a star of about 7th magnitude was some minutes of a degree distant from the moon's dark limb. I saw that its occultation by the moon was inevitable. The star, instead of disappearing the moment the moon's edge came in contact with it, apparently glided on the moon's dark face as if it had been seen through a transparent moon, or as if a star were between me and the moon. I have seen a similar apparent projection several times. The cause of this phenomena is involved in impenetrable mystery." End quote. One more quote I'll relate to you guys about the transparency is from the Chronological History of the Discoveries of the South Sea, Part 1, written by Captain James Burney. And he says, on page 39, quote, "On the forenoon of October 11th, an eclipse of the sun was expected. At 8 minutes past 10 a.m., the sun, having then reached the altitude of 42 degrees, began to lose its brightness, and gradually continued to do so, changing to a dark red color, without any cloud intervening that could be perceived. No part of the body of the sun was hid, but the whole appeared as when seen through thick smoke, till it passed the altitude of 44 degrees, after which it recovered its former luster." End quote. Now, as you think about those quotes, I want to show you this footage from a trip that took place in March 2015 with a flight called Travel Quest International, which gets people a good view of a total solar eclipse that took place over the North Atlantic. So this is somewhere near the North Pole, the center of the Earth, as you flat earthers know. If you look right now, this is some footage from inside the plane. You probably can't notice right now because it's not zoomed in, but there was a weird transparent orb-like anomaly near the front of the sun, which you're going to see better in a little bit. Right now this is the eclipse. You could tell it looks kind of irregular, probably because of that weird orb, but right now it's in slow motion. If you look near the corner right there in front of the sun, there's a transparent orb-like anomaly. I mean, it's not a stain on the window, that's for sure. You're going to get a better view of it in a little bit. Here it is in slow motion again. You can see that weird orb. This is footage shot from the plane or jet, or I'm not sure what it is, but there it is zoomed in. Some weird orbs around the sun. I guess when one of them passes in front of it, we get that eclipse view. Here's some footage from that plane. I think it's slowed down, but the stuff on the green line, it just stands on the window. It's the stuff with the red lines that you need to pay attention to. The stuff with the red lines is the weird orbs. Transparent orb-like anomalies in front of the sun. Here they are zoomed in slow motion. As you can see, one of them is in front of the sun right now. Does this cause the eclipse? I'm not sure. And here it is again, it's another view from the plane. The stuff in green are stains on the window. The stuff with the red marks, those are the orbs. I sound like I'm repeating myself. And zoomed in again just to get a good view at them. And yeah. Now that you have those anomalies in mind, here's some more quotes that might make this seem more plausible. In Cosmos, a sketch of the physical description of the universe, Volume 1, written by Alexander von Humboldt, on page 122 through 23, we see the following, quote, "Stars that are invisible, and consequently have no name, move in space together with those that are visible." End quote. The next one is in the monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society, Volume 10. We see the following quote on page 90. Quote, and we may well doubt whether that body which we call the moon is the only satellite of the Earth." End quote. The last one I want to share with you about possible unknown bodies near stars is from the Encyclopedia Londinensis. Volume 2, on page 411, we see, quote, "Others have supposed that these stars have very large opaque bodies revolving about and near to them, so as to obscure them when they come in conjunction with us." End quote. Now, to put a nail in the coffin of lunar eclipses caused by Earth's shadow, let's take a look at some recorded instances of lunar eclipses. In Astronomy and Astronomical Instruments by George G. Carey, we see on page 105 the following, quote, a remarkable instance of this kind was observed at Paris on the 19th of July, 1750, when the moon appeared visibly eclipsed while the sun was distinctly to be seen above the horizon." End quote. Another one is from the Illustrated London Almanac from 1864 in the Astronomical Articles by James Glacier, Esquire, of the Greenwich Royal Observatory. We see the following, quote, "Had the eclipse occurred a few minutes earlier, we should have had a recurrence of what happened in the lunar eclipses of 1590, July 17th, 1648, November 3rd, 1666, June 16th, and 1668, May 26th, when the moon rose eclipsed whilst the sun was still apparently above the horizon." End quote. The last one I want to share with you is from the Morning Star paper dated March 3rd, 1858. It says, quote, "Extraordinary phenomena attending the eclipse. On Saturday evening, February 27th, 1858, at Brussels, the eclipse was seen by several English philosophers who happened to be present. It was attended by a very remarkable appearance, which Dr. Forster said was wholly inexplicable on any laws of natural philosophy with which he was acquainted. The moment before contact, a small dusky spot appeared on the moon's surface, and during the whole of the eclipse, a reddish-brown fringe, or penumbra, projected above the shadow of the earth. Another thing still more remarkable was the apparent irregularity of the edge of the shadow. 3 persons, one of them an astronomer, were witnesses of these curious phenomena, which no law of refraction can in any way explain." Unquote. Now, this irregularity they are talking about could be related to one of these invisible or transparent bodies that are around or near stars. Maybe even one like you saw in that video. As you can see, they said no law of refraction can in any way explain. Refraction is a lame excuse the globe community loves to use to try to explain away these weird occurrences, but we all know better, and those astronomers in the last quote knew better too. We all know the sun is much smaller than they say, and the sun and moon are always above the surface of the earth. Another quote I wanted to share with you guys that's not related to the previous quotes but still interesting is from the Philosophical Magazine and Journal of Science from December 1848. We see on page 161 the following, quote, "Mr. Walkey, who observed the eclipse at Clyst, St. Lawrence near Colomb, says the appearances were as usual till 20 minutes to 9. At that period, and for the space of the next hour, instead of an eclipse, or the umbra of the earth being the cause of the total obscurity of the moon, the whole face of that body became very quickly and most beautifully illuminated, and assumed the appearance of the glowing heat of fire from the furnace, rather tinged with a deep red. The above description I gave to the editor of one of the Exeter papers, and someone has attempted to solve the peculiarity of the appearance by speaking of the umbra and penumbra, which might have been the cause of it, but such a solution has nothing to do with the appearance, the whole disk of the moon being as perfect with light as if there had been no eclipse whatsoever." End quote. And there have been other recorded instances of the moon eclipse being illuminated to the point that if you told people that there was an eclipse going on, they wouldn't believe it. Now, if the moon isn't the cause of lunar eclipses as you know now, because eclipses have happened without the three bodies being aligned, is it so far-fetched to think that there are other invisible or transparent bodies we aren't aware of causing what we see? You saw the video earlier with the orb-like anomalies and heard the recorded instances, and you should now know the moon isn't a perfect ball as things have been seen through it, proving at least its semi-transparency. So what is the moon? What are moon phases? In Zetetic Astronomy, Earth Not a Globe, page 123, we see the following quote: "It has been shown that the moon is not a reflector of the sun's light, but is self-luminous. That the luminosity is confined to one half of its surface is sufficiently shown by the fact that new moon, the whole circle or outline of the moon is often distinctly visible, but the darker outline is less, or the circle is smaller, than the segment which is illuminated. From this, it is easily seen that the new moon, the full moon, and the gibbous moon are but the different proportions of the illuminated surface which are presented to the observer on Earth." End quote. So now if you look at the moon as in this picture, you can understand why the moon phases appear as they appear and why we always see the same side of the moon. Only one portion of the moon is illuminated, and we see different portions of that illuminated side during the phases. You can see I looked up an article, "Why don't we ever see the far side of the moon?" This is from August of last year. And let's see what excuse they use. NASA this week released photographs of the far side of the moon, providing a lunar perspective we rarely get to see. And is this the image? This is obviously fake, a rendition. Why can't NASA take a real photo? Look at this. This is blatantly an animation of the supposed side of the moon we never get to see. "We don't see the far side because, quote, the moon is tidally locked to the Earth," end quote, said John Keller, deputy project scientist for NASA. Do any of you out there really believe that? Come on, use your common sense.